big one
Yeah.
from that, and really the last kind of big takeaway or thing that I found interesting from the conference was from a guy named Des Ryan who works. I know he worked with Arsenal at one point. I don't know if he still does, but he was talking about profiling with youth athletes, and his big thing was comparing biological versus chronological age. And
Yeah.
they had basically they had done a study, and they have a formula that's based off of the parent's height to determine how far along a kid is in puberty versus how old they are. So, for example, if a kid is 14 or 13 years old, you measure his height, and then he could be, let's say he's 5'8" or 5'9" at that age. He could be at 90% of what his adult height is going to be. Whereas he could be, so if we did that example, he's really is like 15 or 16, according to his biology, but chronologically he's 13, 14. So he's a couple years behind or ahead, I should say. Or vice versa, a kid could be 14, but then he's 80% of his adult height. So biologically, he's 12, and he's got a couple years to catch up. And the point of his thing was he had these pictures of like these 5 or 6 kids that, long story short, the kid that was the tallest at 14 or whatever the age was ended up being the shortest at 18. And then the kid that was the shortest at 14 or whatever ended up being the tallest. And just for these youth teams, particularly in the U.S., or really anywhere, these kids are going to get picked that are more mature first, but they still have these other kids that are late bloomers that have a ton of potential. They're just not at their peak height, where this kid that's already the biggest kid might not be getting any taller, and it's as tall as he's going to get. And we got to catch up on that end. But he had a formula that could kind of track that, and it took into equations. Like, obviously there are some kids that are actually taller than their parents. So it kind of graded it where it would track kind of where you're supposed to be over time. And as you enter in more numbers, it gets more accurate and all that kind of stuff. But that was really interesting. And I think that's something super useful to obviously the high school level, where kids are obviously worried about their growth spurts and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know how easy that would be to implement at anywhere. But it was just something that was interesting to keep in mind of late bloomers, early bloomers, that type of stuff.